Hey guys, tonight we begin with something a little darker, a time of dirt, disease, and very little comfort. We're going way back to the year 1325. You've just opened your eyes in a world without electricity, without Wi-Fi, and without even a bed that isn't full of bugs. The truth is, you probably wouldn't last a single day in medieval Europe. Life back then wasn't just hard, it was relentlessly miserable. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up, not in your cozy bed with fresh sheets and memory foam pillows, but on a pile of straw. The mattress is old, damp, and stuffed with hay and bugs. You feel something crawling near your ear, but you're too tired to react. That's just the fleas your new bedmates. You're in a small, wooden hut. There's no window, just one door, one room, and about 6 other people sleeping beside you, including your cousin's goat. Your back hurts. You're only 22 years old, but your spine creaks like an old tree. In the medieval world, that's middle-aged. If you're lucky, you'll live to see 40. Most people don't. You sit up in your blanket, just a thick piece of wool falls to the ground with a heavy thump. It hasn't been washed in months and smells like wet dog and smoke. The air inside your home is thick. There's no chimney, so the smoke from last night's fire is still floating around. Your eyes sting, your nose burns, you cough. Welcome to morning in the Middle Ages. The ground beneath you isn't really a floor, it's just packed dirt. Cold and hard, and maybe wet, because last night it rained, and your thatched roof has holes in it. Some water dripped onto your blanket, or maybe that wasn't water. It might have been rat pee. You'll never know. The rats don't pay rent, but they sure act like they own the place. You stretch your arms and instantly regret it. Your shoulders are stiff, your knees ache, the cold air bites at your skin. There's no heater, no cozy socks. Just your itchy tunic made of rough wool, which smells like it's been marinated in goat sweat. You look around the room, your entire family is waking up beside you. Mom, dad, siblings, a random uncle, the goat, and about 50 invisible bugs. Privacy? That doesn't exist. Not now, not ever. If you want to change clothes or cry quietly, too bad. Everyone will see I tan probably comment. You shuffle over to the wooden bucket near the corner. No, it's not for washing your face. We'll get to that part later. It's just sitting there half full and covered with a cloth to keep the flies out. It smells like rotten eggs and old soup. You try not to gag. The church bell rings in the distance, loud, echoing through the village. It's your alarm clock only, you can't hit snooze. The bell tells everyone it's time to start the day. Time to work, time to pray, time to suffer. Outside your home, the sky is still gray. The sun hasn't fully risen, and fog hugs the ground like a wet blanket. Your breath comes out in little white clouds. It's cold, always cold in the morning. You slip on your shoes not really shoes, just 2 pieces of leather tied together with string. They barely cover your feet. One of them has a hole. You step in something squishy. You step outside, and your nose is hit with a wave of smells. A mix of smoke, animal droppings, and something you can't quite name. Maybe it's mold. Maybe it's someone's breakfast burning, or maybe it's just Tuesday. You walk past your neighbor's hut. A chicken runs by, flapping its wings like it's late for a meeting. A pig is digging around in the mud, snorting happily. At least someone's enjoying themselves. A woman is already sweeping the path with a broom made of sticks. She nods at you but doesn't smile. No one smiles much here. As you step over a puddle, your foot slips slightly, and you almost land in it. The puddle is dark. Could be water. Could be something else. You decide not to find out. Congratulations, you're part of the medieval world now, and this is just the beginning. Historians still argue whether daily life in rural villages was slightly bearable or completely awful, but most agree on one thing. It was hard. No rest, no help, no peace. Every day was a struggle to stay warm, stay fed, and stay alive. You haven't eaten yet. Your stomach is starting to grumble. But breakfast isn't going to be pancakes and coffee. We'll get to that disaster soon. For now, your goal is simple. Don't freeze, don't fall, and don't step in anything alive. You cough again, your throat is dry, the air feels dusty, your back hurts, your feet hurt, and your day has barely begun. Welcome to medieval life. Hope you survive it. Nature calls. But in the 1300s, nature isn't calling politely, it's shouting. Loudly. You shuffle back inside your little hut, stomach gurgling, and face the unfortunate truth. There is no bathroom, no toilet seat, no tiled floor, no roll of soft toilet paper waiting patiently on the wall. What you have is a bucket, a wooden one, sitting quietly in the corner like it's embarrassed. It's already half full, because your uncle had a bad night after eating something questionable. You hold your breath, squat over it, and do what needs doing. When you're done, you pick up the bucket. You don't want to, but there's no one else to do it. The smell is eye-watering. You walk carefully to the door, open it slightly, and with a practiced motion, toss the contents into the street. Splash. If you're polite and the neighbors are within earshot, you shout "Garde-loup." That's Old French for "watch out below." But most people don't shout anymore. Why waste the breath? Everyone knows what's coming when they hear the bucket creak open. Outside, the narrow dirt path that runs between homes doubles as a sewer. Human waste, animal droppings, mud, old soup. You name it, it's probably out there. A rat scurries past, dragging something long and damp. You don't ask questions. You just step around it. This is the medieval sanitation system. Streets aren't cleaned. Drains don't exist. Waste is dumped straight out of windows into alleys or behind houses. When it rains, the whole village becomes a slow-moving river of filth. Historians still debate how people tolerated these conditions without completely losing their minds. Some believe they became nose-blind. Others say they just didn't have a choice. When you grow up in a world where streets smell like warm compost, you stop noticing gore, you die trying. But maybe, you think, the wealthy had it better. Maybe nobles and kings used golden toilets and perfumed wipes. Not quite. Even in castles, plumbing is a myth. If you're lucky, there's a garderobe, basically a hole in the wall, that drops your business straight down into the moat. Sounds smart, right? Until you realize the moat becomes a giant toilet bowl. And yes, it smells just as bad as you'd expect. Worse, attackers sometimes use the waste chute to break into the castle. Imagine being the guard assigned to check that tunnel. Not exactly a night's dream. Back to you. You've now completed your morning ritual, but you don't feel clean. There's no sink to wash your hands, no soap. Maybe there's a bucket of slightly cleaner water sitting nearby. You splash a bit on your fingers. It's freezing. You wipe your hands on your tunic. Problem solved, kind of. Toilet paper? Not invented yet. People wipe with straw, leaves, rags, moss, or if they're feeling fancy, a scrap of rough cloth. Some don't wipe at all, which might explain why handshakes aren't popular yet. If you lived in a town, you might have access to a public latrine. But don't get excited. These are stone benches with holes, all in a row, no dividers, and no privacy. You sit shoulder to shoulder with strangers, try not to breathe too deeply, and absolutely don't make eye contact. Ventilation? A cruel joke. These places stink worse than the street, but they're better than nothing. Barely. You take a moment to breathe the fresh well, slightly less awful air. A rooster crows somewhere nearby. You look up at the sky. It's still gray. Clouds hang heavy like old laundry. The smell of smoke, wet hay, and last night's soup floats in the air. You head back inside and sigh. At least you survived the toilet, but the day's just getting started. Your stomach growls, loudly. It's morning in medieval Europe, and that means it's time for breakfast if you can call it that. You shuffle toward the hearth, where a small fire struggles to stay alive. It was burning low all night, partly to keep the chill away, and partly to warm whatever's left in the cooking pot. You kneel beside it, poke the embers a little, and lift the lid of the pot. The smell that rises is confusing. Sour, smoky, earthy, and maybe a little like old feet. Inside is pottage. Again, it's always pottage. A gloopy mix of grains, vegetables, and whatever else your family has managed to scrape together over the past few days. Or weeks. It's been simmering forever, and every day, new ingredients are just dumped on top. It's less of a meal and more of a swampy science experiment. You scoop a bit into a wooden bowl. It's warm, but not exactly inviting. You stare into the thick gray sludge, hoping to see a carrot or maybe a bean. No luck today. Just turnip bits and mystery roots. You take a bite. It tastes like soggy bark boiled in regret. On the side, there's bread. Sort of. It's a hunk of something hard enough to be used as a weapon. You knock it against the table. It thuds like a rock. That's normal. Bread in the Middle Ages isn't soft and fluffy. It's coarse, dense, and made from barley or rye flour. You're lucky. If times are tough, it might be filled out with ground acorns, sawdust, or even clay. You try to chew it, slowly, carefully. You like to keep your few remaining teeth, thank you very much. You look around. Your family is eating too, quietly. No one says much during meals. Talking takes energy, and energy is precious. Everyone looks tired. Everyone looks cold. And no one looks satisfied. You glance at your younger brother. He's drinking something from a cup. You hope it's water, but you know better. It's small beer, very weak ale. Why is he drinking beer at 6 in the morning? Because the water could kill him. Streams and wells are full of bacteria, parasites, and occasionally dead animals. Boiling water helps, but beer is safer. Low alcohol, mildly fermented, and just strong enough to keep the germs away. Even kids drink it. No one's excited about this. It's just survival. You take a sip. It's flat, sour, and tastes a little like bread juice. But it won't give you dysentery. Probably. Meat? That's a fantasy. Most peasants only eat meat a few times a year, maybe on holidays or saints' feast days. Chickens are too valuable for their eggs. Pigs are saved for special occasions. Cows? Those are practically bank accounts on 4 legs. If you're very lucky, there might be a slice of dried sausage or a chunk of leftover bacon from last week's feast. But today is not one of those lucky days. Cheese? Maybe. If someone made it recently and it hasn't spoiled yet, it's soft, salty, and covered in something that might be mold or might be extra flavor. Either way, you nibble carefully. Fresh fruit? Not unless it's in season. And if it is, it's probably already been turned into wine or hoarded by someone with more power than you. Spices? Forget it. A pinch of black pepper costs more than your whole week's wages. Salt is valuable enough to be locked away. Most food tastes like boiled sadness. If you're really lucky, someone tossed in an onion or a garlic clove to liven things up. You sigh. This isn't breakfast. It's barely edible. But it's all you have. So you eat. Slowly, gratefully, even though each bite is a chore. Historians still argue whether the peasant diet was nutritious or just barely enough to keep people alive. Sure, pottage had some vegetables. Bread had fiber. But the constant hunger, lack of variety, and questionable cooking methods probably didn't help anyone thrive. And let's not forget the rats. They're always nearby, always watching. If you left the pot uncovered overnight, there's a decent chance one of them had a midnight snack. You try not to think about it. You take another bite. At least it's warm. Your breakfast doesn't make you feel energized. It doesn't lift your mood. It just happens to you. A necessary step before the real suffering of the day begins. You scrape the bottom of your bowl, lick your fingers, and place the bowl back near the fire. Someone will add more water and scraps later. The pottage lives on. Outside, the bell rings again. Work is waiting. But don't worry, we'll get to that misery in a moment. You've eaten your pottage, chewed your brick-like bread, and choked down a sip of warm, flat beer. Now it's time to get dressed. Not that it'll help much. Your medieval wardrobe isn't a closet full of options. It's one outfit. Just one. And you wear it every single day. You reach for your tunic. It's made of rough, itchy wool. Thick enough to keep out some of the cold, but thin enough to let in all the wind. You've had it for so long that parts of it are stiff from age, dirt, and life. You shake it out, and a little cloud of duster, maybe dead skin puffs, into the air. You slip it on. It scratches like you're putting on sandpaper. You shift a little, hoping to find a comfortable spot, but there's no such thing. You scratch your shoulder. It doesn't help. Underwear? Maybe. If you're lucky, you might have a linen shift to wear underneath. But today's not a lucky day. You're going commando under your medieval gear. Layers of scratchy wool rubbing against sensitive skin. What could go wrong? Shoes come next her, what passes for them. You grab your leather foot coverings from beside the hearth. They're basically slabs of animal hide tied with string. No arch support, no stitching, no cushioning. One of them has a hole the size of a coin. You slip them on and instantly feel every rock, pebble, and regret underfoot. Some peasants just go barefoot, through mud, manure, and disease puddles. You understand why. Sometimes the shoes hurt more than the ground. There's no coat, no jacket, just your tunic and maybe an extra layer if someone didn't steal it. You wrap a belt around your waist, not for style, but to hold things like a pouch with a few beans or a very small knife. You run a hand through your hair. It's greasy, tangled, full of surprises, maybe a flea or two. You give your scalp a little scratch and feel immediate relief until the itching returns 2 seconds later. Your body at this point is more ecosystem than person. Fleas, lice, and bedbugs have taken up permanent residence. You can't see them, but you feel them. Crawling, biting, laughing, probably. Historians still debate just how bad hygiene really was in medieval Europe, but almost everyone agrees on one thing. People were itchy, constantly. Rich, poor, priest, peasant, everyone had bugs. You look around and see your siblings scratching too. No one comments, it's normal. You grab a cloth to wipe your face, it's damp, and not in a good way. You sniff it, then immediately wish you hadn't. You wipe anyway. Better than nothing. There's no soap, maybe some ashes mixed with water if you're feeling fancy. There's no bath coming anytime soon either. Bathing is for special occasions or never. Depends on who you ask. You step outside, the wind hits your face, and you instantly regret leaving the fire. The cold stings your skin. Your tunic flaps in the breeze, offering zero protection. You pull it tighter, but it doesn't help. The sun is up now, barely peeking through the clouds. Your neighbors are also stepping outside, all looking like they crawled out of the same haystack. Everyone's outfit is brown, gray, or some shade of what's probably white once. You watch a man walk by wearing trousers that are more whole than cloth. A woman nearby is tying a torn apron with string. A kid is wearing his dad's shirt as a dress. Fashion in the Middle Ages is not about looking good. It's about not freezing to death. Even the nobles, those who live in drafty stone castles, don't have it much better. Sure, their clothes are cleaner, richer, dyed in fancy colors, but they still wear layers of wool and linen. They still itch. They still smell. You try to breathe through your nose, but the smell of manure and smoke makes you switch back to your mouth. The cold air feels sharp against your teeth. You tug your tunic down and sigh. Clothing isn't comfort here. It's armor. Not against swords, but against cold, dirt, and embarrassment. And yet, despite everything, you're now officially dressed. Sort of. Your stomach growls again, not because you're still hungry, well, maybe a little, but because your nerves know what's coming next. It's time to work, and nothing about that will be pleasant. The bell rings again, a dull, distant clang echoing over the hills and across the frozen mud that passes for your street. In medieval Europe, bells are your calendar, your clock, your alarm. And right now, they're telling you what you already know. It's time to start working. You sigh, pull your rough wool tunic a bit tighter around your chest, and begin the short walk to the fields. Your feet sink slightly into the wet earth with each step. Mud clings to your ankles. A chicken scuttles past. Somewhere nearby, a baby is crying. A dog barks. You pass a man trying to get his ox moving by yelling at it and lightly smacking it with a stick. The ox doesn't care. Neither do you. Because you're on your way to the fields. And the fields do not care who you are, how tired you feel, or whether you slept last night. They just demand everything. You reach your Spokane open stretch of land surrounded by other villagers, all hunched over and moving like slow, cold ghosts. The ground is hard from the cold, but not frozen enough to stop the work. It never is. You grab your tool. It's a wooden hoe, worn smooth from years of use. The blade is dull. You hit a rock on your second swing. Your hands already sting. You begin to dig. Medieval work days aren't 9 to 5. They're sunrise to sunset. No lunch break, no weekends, no mental health days. Just you, the land, and the endless rhythm of labor. Your job today? Turn over the soil so that it's ready for planting. It sounds simple. It isn't. Each swing is a battle against rocks, roots, and soil that resists you like it holds a grudge. Your arms ache, your back protest, but you keep going because you have no choice. Your family needs this crop to grow. There is no grocery store. If the crops fail, you starve. It's that simple. You glance to your left and see an old man working slower than you. He coughs hard, spits into the dirt, and keeps moving. To your right, a young boy is carrying water in a wooden bucket that's nearly as big as he is. He stumbles, spills a little, but keeps going. Nobody talks much. Talking wastes energy. After a while, you straighten your back, stretch slightly, and regret it immediately. Your spine cracks like dry kindling. You rub your neck and look toward the village. Smoke is rising from chimneys. The sky is still gray, and your stomach is growling again. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants had more leisure time than modern workers. Some say the calendar was filled with religious holidays and seasonal pauses. Others point out that free time means little when your survival depends on constant effort. Sure, there are feast days, but today isn't one of them. Today is just regular, crushing, muddy, cold work. You stop to drink from a clay jug someone left nearby. The water tastes metallic, and there's something floating in it. Probably just ash or a bug. You drink anyway. Your throat is dry. In the distance, someone yells. You don't look up. It's not your problem. You return to your hoe, your plot of land, your small piece of survival. If you're lucky, the weather will stay mild. No sudden frost, no hail, no flooding. If you're not lucky, and most peasants aren't, something will ruin your crop. Then comes famine. And the worst part, even if everything goes right, most of what you grow will go to the landlord or the church. You get a fraction, a small one, because you're not working for wealth. You're working to not die. You pause, look at your hands. Blisters are already forming. Your nails are cracked. There's dirt under every finger. You'll wash later maybe. For now, there's more soil to move, more sweat to give, more aching to do. A woman nearby sneezes hard. No one says bless you. No one notices, because the field is still waiting. The earth doesn't care if you're sick, cold, or hurting. It just needs to be broken open. You swing your hoe again, and again, and again. Let's say you're not a man in the fields. Let's say you're a woman. Congratulations, your medieval life just got even harder. You don't go to the fields much, unless your family is truly desperate for hands, which they often are. But your main job is even tougher. Keep the entire household alive. Before dawn, you were up, stirring the fire, milking the goat, feeding the chickens, grinding grain into flour, checking the pottage, wiping your children's noses, and probably your husband's too, though he wouldn't admit it. You haven't even had your first bite of food, and already you've worked more than most nobles will all week. Your back aches from carrying water from the well. Your arms are sore from kneading bread. Your eyes burn from the smoke inside your one-room hut. And you're barely 19 years old. You're also probably pregnant. Again, childbirth is not a joyous, candlelit moment here. It's a gamble. There's no hospital, no midwife training, no painkillers. If you're lucky, there's an older woman nearby who's done this 10 times and only lost 3 babies. If you're unlucky, you give birth in the dark, on a dirt floor, surrounded by relatives whispering prayers under their breath. And even if you survive, the child might not. Half of all babies die before age 5. Colds turn deadly. Cuts turn septic. Teething is an actual hazard. Historians still argue whether women in the Middle Ages had more authority inside the home than we give them credit for. Some did, especially widows and nuns. But for most, life was controlled by the church, their father, or their husband. In that order, and if you stepped out of line, if you were too loud, too independent, or simply too unlucky, the village had ways to deal with you. Gossip could get you labeled a witch. A bad harvest could make you the scapegoat. Too many children? Lazy. Too few? Cursed. No husband? Suspicious. Too many husbands? Very suspicious. Even your clothes could get you in trouble. Wear something too nice, and people think you're arrogant. Too plain, and they think you're strange. Either way, you lose. Oh, and let's not forget the endless cleaning. The floor isn't just muddy, it's alive. Bugs, dust, mold, animal waste. You sweep constantly, but it never ends. You're not trying to make it spotless. You're just trying to make it slightly less horrible. Cooking? That's you. Over a fire that constantly smokes, burns your hands, and refuses to stay lit. One wrong move and your sleeve catches. No fire extinguisher, no first aid, just hope and screams. Clothes? You make them. by hand. Spinning wool, weaving cloth, sewing, mending. Every garment takes hours. You can't just go to a shop. There are no shops. Not for people like you. And remember, you do all of this while pregnant, nursing, bleeding, or recovering from one of the three. There are no sanitary products, just rags, washed in cold water with your bare hands. Your dreams? You don't have time for dreams. Just tasks. Your friends? The other women doing the exact same thing in the hut next door. You talk while scrubbing pots or chasing toddlers. Sometimes you laugh. More often, you just sigh together and keep moving. Younger girls watch and learn. There's no school. Your education is pain, repetition, and the quiet warnings of women who've already seen too much. Your husband? If you're lucky, he's kind. If not, you endure. The law gives him full control. He can beat you, take your earnings, even sell your dowry. You just try to avoid making him angry, or embarrassed, or bored. Even noble women, wrapped in silk and sitting in cold stone towers, aren't free. Their marriages are arranged. Their lives planned. Their choices few. They may eat better, but they still bleed, birth, and break under pressure. You stir the pot again, a child tugs your sleeve. Someone's crying. The fire dies down. The goat has escaped. Again. And the day's barely half over. You step outside for a moment, just a quick breath of air before you return to work, whatever that may be. But nature, ever unkind in the Middle Ages, has other plans. The moment you open the door, a blast of cold air slaps you across the face like an insult. Welcome to weather in medieval Europe. It's not just inconvenient, it's dangerous. You check the sky. Gray, as usual. Heavy clouds hang low like a wet ceiling. The ground is still soggy from last night's rain, and your feet sink slightly with each step. A light mist hangs in the air, dampening your clothes and your soul. You look around at your neighbors. Everyone is wrapped in the same brown, scratchy wool. There's no such thing as waterproof fabric. If it rains, you get wet. If it's windy, you stay cold. If it snows, you suffer. No gloves, no scarves, no thermal socks. Just layers of old cloth, hopefully not riddled with lice. It's late autumn, which means you're trying to prepare for winter while already freezing. You gather firewood from the pile near the shed. It's damp. Of course it's damp. Everything is damp. You stack it near the hearth and hope it dries in time. The hut is chilly inside, even with a fire. The thatched roof doesn't insulate Tate breathes, and what it breathes in is every bit of cold air from outside. There's no glass in the windows, only oiled cloth or wooden shutters which don't seal properly. The wind whistles through the cracks like a ghost with asthma. Historians still debate whether winters were harsher during the medieval period due to the so-called Little Ice Age. But no matter the debate, one thing is clear. Peasants suffered all year. In summer, you bake. Not in a fun, beachy way. In a trapped, sweaty, wool-covered, sunburned way. You can't undress, the sun burns your skin and your religion frowns on immodesty. So you just stew in your own sweat. In spring, you drown. Melting snow and spring rains turn everything into mud. Roads, floors, field saw squelch underfoot. Your clothes never dry, your feet grow mushrooms. Probably. In autumn, like now, it's a strange mix of wet, cold, and dread. You know what's coming, winter. And winter does not play around. When winter hits, it hits hard. Days grow short, nights are endless. Food gets scarce, fires burn constantly, eating up your precious wood supply. You stay inside more, but with more people huddled together, disease spreads faster. Coughs echo through the hut like drumbeats of doom. And if you don't have enough wood, or your roof collapses under snow, or your stored grain goes moldy, then winter doesn't just make you uncomfortable, it kills you. But today, it's just cold. Not deadly, not yet. You head outside again to fetch water from the well. The bucket handle is freezing against your skin. You wince. Your hands are already chapped and red from the weather. Every winter, the cracks open. Some get infected. You keep working anyway. Back inside, you place the water by the hearth and try to warm your hands. Someone sneezes, then coughs. You try not to notice, but you do, because in the Middle Ages, a cough isn't just a cough, it's a warning. No one is safe from the weather. Even nobles in their stone castles suffer. The walls are thick, but the stone holds cold like a sponge. Fires roar in giant hearths, but the warmth rarely reaches the corners. People sleep fully dressed, often with animals nearby just for the body heat. Blankets? Sure, but they're heavy, itchy, and rarely clean. You sip a little warm beer to take the edge off. It helps, sort of. You wrap yourself tighter in your tunic and sit by the fire. You try to enjoy the few minutes of warmth before you're needed again outside, probably, because no matter what the weather is doing, your work doesn't stop. It can't. And the weather doesn't care. It never did. You're cold, you're hungry again, and your back still hurts from bending over in the field. But before the next miserable task calls, you remember something strange, something modern people do almost daily without even thinking. Bathing. You blink slowly and rub your itchy scalp. When was the last time you bathed? Exactly. You're not filthy by accident. You're filthy by design. In medieval times, bathing was not a regular thing. It was rare, complicated, and for many, downright scary. To begin with, there are no showers, no faucets, no hot water tanks. To bathe, you need someone to heat water over a fire, carry that water to a wooden tub, and then repeat the process several times until the tub is full enough to sit in. And even then, it's a lukewarm puddle by the time you're ready. Your house doesn't even have a tub. That's a luxury. If you're lucky, your village might have a public bathhouse. But that depends on the year, the region, and whether the church has shut it down for being sinful. Because yes, at one point, people believed bathing was bad for your soul. Historians still argue when and why that belief really took hold. Some say it was a misinterpretation of church teachings. Others say it was because of plagues and the growing fear that water could carry disease. The irony? They were kind of right, but also very wrong. You scratch your side again. The itching never stops. Lice love warm, unwashed bodies. Fleas, too. You've tried vinegar, ashes, even crushed herbs. Nothing helps. You're basically a walking bed and breakfast for parasites. Rich people? They might bathe once a month if they're feeling fancy. They use wooden tubs with perfumed water and servants to scrub their backs. But even they think too much. Bathing weakens the body, opens the pores, makes you vulnerable to bad humors. Peasants like you bathe maybe 2 or 3 times a year, maybe. And that's being generous. What do you do instead? You rub yourself down with a damp cloth, maybe some herbs, maybe a bit of sand if you're desperate. You change clothes only slightly more often than you bathe. And changing just means rotating between the same 2 tunics. You do have a communal sweat hut, something like a primitive sauna. You sit inside, steam pouring off hot stones, and sweat the dirt out. It helps a little, until you go home and sit in your dirty bedding again. To cover the smell, people wear scented pouches around their next little bags filled with lavender, rosemary, or dried flowers. They don't make you clean. They just make your filth smell like fancy filth. Toothbrushing? Absolutely not. You might use a twig to poke around your gums, maybe chew on mint or sage, but dental care isn't a concept yet. Your teeth are yellow, cracked, and aching. Most people lose them by 30. If something hurts badly enough, the village barber might yank it out with pliers, no anesthetic, and a lot of screaming. You catch a glimpse of yourself in a polished piece of metal. Your face is dull, tired. Your hair is flat with grease. There's something suspicious in your beard. You stop looking. You splash a bit of water on your face from a wooden bowl. It's cold and stings your skin. You rub your arms down with a rag that's seen better days. It doesn't help. You feel just as dirty, maybe dirtier. You remember that nobles used to apply crocodile dung mixed with herbs as a face mask. At least you're not doing that. You settle back near the fire. The smoke stings your eyes, but it also masks some of the other smells. There's comfort in the fire, despite its ashes, despite the burns. It's warmth, it's familiar, it's all you've got. Outside, the bell rings again. You groan. It's time to fetch more water. You pull on your stiff, grimy tunic and shuffle to the door, scratching your back as you go. A flea jumps onto your hand. You flick it away. Welcome to medieval hygiene. A place where being clean is suspicious, dangerous, and nearly impossible. It's nearly midday and your stomach has started complaining again. Unfortunately, it's time for your second helping of sorrow, also known as lunch. You don't expect variety. You don't expect flavor. You don't even expect to feel full. You sit by the hearth again, and guess what's waiting for you? That's right, pottage. Still bubbling, still grayish, still alive. You don't ask. You just scoop some into your bowl, blow gently on the steam, and hope whatever was crawling in it earlier has decided to leave. You take a bite. It tastes like someone boiled disappointment and added a pinch of mud. But it's warm, and warm counts for a lot. On the side, there's bread again, slightly less stale than this morning's piece. Someone sliced off the green, fuzzy parts and insists it's still good. You chew carefully. You've made peace with the fact that if your teeth don't fall out naturally, this bread might help speed things up. But today, there's a treat, a sliver of bacon. It's thin, salty, and tough as leather. You chew for a while, then chew some more, then wonder if this is what old boots taste like. You smile slightly. It's still bacon. In the corner, someone adds a bit of crushed wild onion to the pot. Fancy. Your taste buds perk up for half a second before going back to sleep. Drinks. Still small beer. Still warm. Still flat. Still safer than the water, though you saw a fly take a swim in the bucket earlier. You scoop around it. It's fine. If you're lucky, someone's foraged for herbs or leafy greens nearby, things like nettles, dandelion leaves, or sorrel. These make the pottage a little brighter, a little tangier. They also occasionally make people's stomachs explode if picked wrong. That's the gamble. You eat slowly. Not to savor, there's not much to savor, but to stretch the moment. Eating is one of the few breaks in the day, and you want it to last. Historians still debate whether the medieval peasants' diet was survivable or barely so. Some argue that the sheer amount of fiber and natural foods made them healthier than we imagine. Others point out that malnutrition, scurvy, and starvation were never far behind. Your body's used to it. You crave salt. You dream of honey. You think about cheese like it's a long-lost love. But you get by, mostly. Still, every so often, you get sick from the food itself. Bread made from rye, sometimes it develops ergot, a toxic fungus. Eat too much and you hallucinate, shake, or even die. People once thought it was witchcraft. It wasn't. It was bad bread. Meat stored too long, worms. Fish caught yesterday but left out in the sun, it'll definitely fight back. You finish your meal with the same expression everyone else has. Neutral acceptance. Not joy, not disgust. Just resignation. Food is fuel, not fun. And yet, there's a strange comfort in the routine. The warmth of the pot, the crackle of the fire, the clink of wooden bowls, and the occasional grumble of someone hoping for more salt. You lean back slightly, pat your stomach partially full, partially confused, and stretch your legs. For a few minutes, things feel almost peaceful. Then the fire pops. The baby cries. Someone knocks over a water bucket. And just like that, it's time to go back to work. Because medieval life doesn't pause. Not even for indigestion. You stand up slowly, rubbing your knees. They crack, of course. Everything cracks. And now that lunch is over, it's time to finish the second half of your never-ending shift in this medieval theme park of pain. But let's pause for a moment and talk about one of the biggest daily risks you face. Your food. Yes. The very stuff meant to keep you alive could also end you. Let's start with meat. If you're lucky enough to get some, maybe your family slaughtered a pig last month and managed to cure a bit, you'd better hope it was stored well. Salted, smoked, dried, or just left hanging in the pantry, hoping it doesn't grow its own mustache. There's no fridge, no freezer, just salt, darkness, and denial. You take a bite, and your tongue tingles. Is that spice or spoilage? Hard to tell. If the meat smells a little off, some folks just boil it harder or rub more salt into it. Problem solved? Not really. You might feel fine for a few hours, then suddenly double over with cramps and a fever. Surprise! It was food poisoning medieval edition. Next, bread. Ah, bread. Your faithful rock-hard companion. Usually made from rye, barley, or oats, because wheat is for rich people and church tithes. But rye has a secret. Under the right damp conditions, it can grow a little friend called ergot. Ergot is a toxic fungus. Eat too much of it, and you'll hallucinate, tremble, or collapse in a pile. Some villages experienced whole outbreaks. People thought they were cursed or possessed. Nope, just eating evil toast. Historians still argue whether these mass possessions were due to spiritual panic or fungal bread. Either way, it's safe to say your daily loaf is doing more than filling your belly. It's running experiments on your nervous system. And then there's the milk. Spoil prone, usually warm, and often straight from the cow, goat, or sheep. If it sits out too long, it curdles into something between yogurt and regret. You eat it anyway, because what else is there? Cheese is safer. Kind of. Hard cheeses can last longer. Soft ones, not so much. There's no label to tell you when it expires. You go by smell. If it knocks you out cold, maybe it's time to throw it to the pigs. Now, let's talk about your vegetables. You grow them yourself, usually. Turnips, onions, leeks, beans, all decent if the weather cooperates. But without pesticides or proper storage, it's not uncommon to find worms, rot, or mold. You pick off the worst bits and hope the rest doesn't bite back. Water? We've already covered that mess. You rarely trust it. It's either straight from a stream contaminated with animal droppings or from a well that hasn't been cleaned since last year's plague. So you drink small beer, mildly alcoholic, safer than water, and made in small batches. But even beer can go wrong. A dirty barrel, a bad ferment, a spoiled grain. It's a gamble. You burp quietly after lunch, unsure if it's satisfaction or the early warning signs of something sinister. Even fruits, when available, carry risk. Apples with bruises, berries with mold. And don't even think about eating anything unfamiliar you find in the woods. You might think it's a harmless mushroom. It might think you are the harmless mushroom. But let's not pretend the nobility had it better. Sure, they had more food and fancier food. Roasted peacocks, meat pies with crust thicker than a monk's accent, exotic spices from far-off lands. But food safety still wasn't a thing. They didn't understand germs. They thought bad smells caused illness. So instead of washing hands, they waved around perfume sachets. Instead of separating raw and cooked meat, they dumped everything onto one giant platter and hoped for the best. In their kitchens, nightmares. Smoke everywhere. Butchers sweating over unrefrigerated cuts. Rats playing hopscotch near the flour sacks. And, worst of all, the sauce. Why the sauce? Because it was often so spiced and strong not to add flavor but to hide the taste of rotting meat. Bon appetit. You think of all this as you head back to your chores, your stomach gurgling slightly. Is it indigestion? Or is it another medieval surprise? You don't know. And honestly, you're too tired to care. You're still wiping your mouth with the same sleeve you use for everything, cleaning, sneezing, swatting flies when the church bell rings again. But this time, it's not about work. It's about faith. Or more precisely, control dressed up as salvation. In the medieval world, religion isn't just a part of life, it is life. From the moment you're born to the day you're buried, likely in a shallow grave next to your cousin's goat, the church is the unblinking eye watching everything you do. Miss a prayer? God saw that. Swear under your breath after stepping in manure? So did God. Eat meat on the wrong day? Yep, God again. The local priest doesn't just handle Sunday services. He handles marriages, deaths, disputes, taxes, and your eternal soul. He might not be the holiest man around, but he holds real power because the church owns a massive chunk of land, collects tithes from every family, and makes the rules about what happens after you die. You cross yourself automatically. It's habit now. Muscle memory. You're not even sure if you're praying anymore or just twitching. You walk past the village church's squat stone building with a wooden door and smoke-blackened candles inside. The air smells like old wax and moldy hymn books. A woman kneels at the altar, whispering rapidly. A child beside her mimics the motions, bored. You remember that time you skipped mass, just once. You were sick, or maybe it was raining. Either way, you were shamed publicly the next day. The priest gave a whole sermon about lazy souls and backsliders. You didn't make that mistake again. But it's not just about guilt, it's about fear. You genuinely believe that if you die without the proper rites, you could end up in purgatory, or worse hell, a place of fire, demons, and eternal suffering. You've never seen it, but the church paints vivid pictures. Historians still debate whether medieval people lived in constant spiritual terror or found comfort in their faith. For many, it was both. Religion explained suffering. It gave purpose to pain. It also kept everyone in line. You listen to the chants drifting from the church. You can't read the Biblets in Latin, and you're illiterate, but you've memorized a few prayers. You repeat them in your head like a song with a terrifying beat. Still, religion isn't just about love and light. It's about rules. No eating meat on Fridays, no working on holy days unless you're a peasant, in which case, maybe just light work. No sex outside of marriage. No questioning the priest. No touching relics unless you're pure. And don't you dare complain. That sounds a lot like heresy. If the crops fail, it's because someone sinned. If your child dies, it was God's will. If your neighbor's goat gives birth to a two-headed kid, definitely witchcraft. Faith isn't just spiritual, it's political. The Pope can declare war. Priests act as judges. Monks are the only people who can read and write in many towns. The church is the Google, the government, and the HR department all rolled into one. You remember how the church raised money last year by selling indulgences, essentially a heavenly get-out-of-jail card. Want fewer years in purgatory? Pay up. Your soul has a price tag. You didn't have the money, of course. You just prayed harder and hoped God accepted the poor man's version of repentance. Still, there are moments of peace. On feast days, the village gathers. There's music, dancing, and slightly better food. People laugh. Children run through the streets. For one brief moment, the world feels less cruel. You even feel blessed. But those days are rare. Most of the time, religion feels like one more burden on your tired, muddy shoulders. You obey out of hope, but also out of deep, bone-chilling fear. You light a candle for your grandmother. She died last winter, coughing so hard she couldn't sleep. The priest says she went to heaven. You hope he's right. You step out of the church, squint at the sky. It's still gray, still heavy, but at least you've checked off your spiritual duties. Now, back to surviving, because saints don't dig their own potatoes. Just when you think the worst of the day is over, a shout rings out in the village square. Not the regular kind, the angry kind. You hurry toward the sound. You don't want to get involved, but you can't help it. Medieval justice is loud, public, and deeply unsettling. You arrive to find a small crowd forming. In the center, a man tied to a wooden post. His tunic is ripped, his face bruised. A village official, maybe the reeve or bailiff, reads a charge from a scrap of parchment. You catch a few words: theft, witness, confession. That's all anyone needs. There's no lawyer, no cross-examination, no presumption of innocence. The man stutters something in his defense. No one listens. A sentence is declared. He stole a chicken, apparently. His punishment? 1 hand in the stocks for a day, and the loss of a fingertip. Your stomach flips. You look away, but it's too late. A blacksmith steps forward, holding a blunt knife. The man screams. Blood hits the dirt. The crowd doesn't flinch. This isn't rare. It's how justice works here. In the medieval world, punishment is meant to be seen. If you sin in secret, your soul suffers. But if you break the law in public, your body does. Often in front of neighbors, friends' 7 children. Minor crimes get you the stocks wooden contraptions that clamp your arms or legs and leave you in the sun all day while people throw rotten food, or rocks, or insults. Bigger crimes: whipping, branding, mutilation. Accused of spreading false rumors, your tongue might be pierced or even partially cut out. Caught stealing more than once, you might lose a hand. And if someone accuses you of witchcraft, especially if you're a woman who talks too much, heals with herbs, or owns a suspicious-looking cat, you're in real trouble. You've seen trials by ordeal. The most horrifying? Trial by water. The accused is tied and dropped into a river. If they float, they're guilty, because the water rejects them. If they sink, innocent, but dead. There's also trial by fire. Touching red-hot iron and seeing if your burns heal cleanly within a few days. If not, guilty. Historians still argue whether people believe these trials were fair or just feared the church too much to question them. Probably a little of both. For nobles, the rules are different, of course. They might pay a fine or settle things in court, surrounded by advisors and parchments. But even they risk duels, exile, or in extreme cases, execution. Heads roll for political mistakes. Literally. You remember the story of that poor farmer who couldn't pay his rent and tried to hide a bag of grain. He was caught. They made an example out of him, hung from a tree outside the village for 2 days. You walked past him on your way to the fields. No one said a word. Justice in your world isn't about rehabilitation. It's about fear. It's about making sure everyone sees what happens when you don't follow the rules, when you question the wrong person, when you're just unlucky. You step away from the crowd as they scatter. A child walks past, eyes wide. She'll never forget that sound. You won't either. Back at your hut, someone's crying. A neighbor's son has been taken to serve in the local lord's retinue. They didn't ask. They just came and got him. You nod silently. That's just how it works. Power here isn't gentle, it's sharp, and it's everywhere. You sit down, pull your knees close, and try not to think about the fingertip lying in the dirt back in the square. It's just another day. Evening settles over the village like a damp wool blanket, heavy, itchy, and not quite warm enough. The sun dips low behind the hills, casting long shadows across the huts and fields. A few distant fires flicker in chimneys. You can smell smoke and stewed onions and the faint trace of something burning, probably your neighbor's dinner again. You're tired, deep tired, bone tired. Every part of you ache, feet, back, arms, even your fingers. But the day isn't over just yet, because before you can sleep, you have one last ongoing responsibility: the animals. You shuffle toward the pen behind your hut. The ground is uneven, wet from yesterday's rain. You nearly slip, but catch yourself on the corner of the fancia, crude, splintery thing that tears a tiny hole in your sleeve. You don't have the energy to care. Inside the pen, a few chickens cluck lazily. One pecks at a worm. The goat bleats loudly, stomping around like it owns the place. You check its water, still muddy, still nearly frozen. You add some more from the bucket you hauled earlier. The goat looks unimpressed. Animals are your livelihood. Eggs, milk, manure, the occasional meat if one gets sick or runs off. It's a disaster. So you check them daily, feed them, clean their pens, patch the fencing. And in winter, you sometimes bring them inside. Yes, inside your one-room home. That goat, she sleeps next to the hearth on colder nights. Chickens roost near the corner. Your family sleeps on straw. The animals do too. Everyone together, sharing warmth, fleas, and the occasional middle-of-the-night surprise. You don't like it, but it's better than letting them freeze. Historians still argue how common indoor animal sharing really was. Some believe it was an act of survival. Others think it was just convenience. Either way, you've stepped in something unpleasant in your sleep more than once. You give the goat a half-hearted scratch between the ears. She headbutts your knee in response. You sigh. Back inside, the hearth fire is low. You toss on a few damp logs. They hiss and crack, smoke curling toward the thatched roof. Your eyes sting. Your family is already curled up in their usual places. No beds, just piles of straw, old blankets, and each other's body heat. You take off your shoes, not that they did much anyway, and slide into your spot near the wall. There's no privacy. No pajamas. No bedtime stories. Just groans, scratches, occasional muttering, and the sound of someone snoring like a clogged chimney. You close your eyes, try to find stillness, but it's hard. You can hear the wind howling through the cracks in the wood. A baby starts crying in the next hut. Somewhere, a dog barks once, then twice, then nothing. You scratch your arm, something bites your leg. Flea, probably, or lice, or both. You itch, always. You pull the blanket over your head and breathe in the scent of wood smoke, wool, and old sweat. It's gross, but it's familiar. Comfort, medieval style. You start to drift off. Your muscles loosen. Your breathing slows. Then you remember tomorrow is market day, and you'll be waking up even earlier than usual. Because in this world, even rest comes with conditions. Before the sun has even dared to peek over the horizon, you're up. Not by choice, there's no snooze button, just the irritating reality of market day. This is one of the few times you actually leave the village. And it's not for fun. It's for trade. You've got to bring something, anything that someone else might want. You bundle up in your best tunic, still scratchy, still stained in, throw a tattered cloak over your shoulders. It smells like goat, because it was probably your goat's blanket last winter. You grab your bundle, a few eggs, some rough spun thread, and a lumpy round of cheese that's slightly harder than optimism. You tie it all into a cloth and sling it over your back. The road to market isn't paved, it's mud. Slippery, sticky, boot-sucking mud. You walk for miles, past twisted trees, past puddles you swear have personalities. past the same crow that watches you every week with deep judgment. Your legs already ache. Eventually, the town appears ahead, clustered buildings, taller than anything in your village, and an actual stone church with a bell that rings on time. You step into the crowd, and suddenly, it's noise and elbows and smells. Medieval markets are chaos wrapped in smells. There's roasting meat, manure, fish that's been dead for a suspicious amount of time, and the sharp tang of unwashed bodies. You add your own flavor to the mix and join the crowd. You find a spot along the side of a dusty stall and lay out your wares. An old man eyes your eggs. A woman sniffs your cheese and makes a face. Someone asks how fresh the thread ices, if that's a question that makes any sense. You manage a few trades. The eggs go in exchange for onions. The cheese earns you a small sack of barley. No one wants the thread. You tuck it back in your bundle, disappointed but unsurprised. You see other villagers from your area doing the same, swapping goat hides, woven baskets, old tools, and sometimes just gossip. You pass a man preaching on a wooden box. He's shouting about sin and end times, and how the plague was God's punishment for vanity. People toss him scraps of bread. He eats between sermons. Historians still debate the role of market towns in medieval society. Some argue they were economic lifelines. Others think they were more about connection or rare chance. To hear news, see strangers, maybe even flirt behind a stall of turnips. You overhear someone mention a war far to the north. Another whispers about a village lost to fire. A traveling merchant brags about a new spice called cinnamon. You don't know what that is, but he says it costs more than a cow. As the day drags on, you get tired. The noise is too much. The smells are overwhelming. Your stomach growls, but you can't afford any of the hot pies being sold nearby. You chew a raw onion instead and try not to cry. You see a pickpocket get caught. A group of guards drags him away. There's shouting. A child nearby starts crying. No one intervenes. You finally decide to head home. You didn't gain much, a little food, a bit of cloth. But the walk home feels even longer than before. You step over the same mud puddles, past the same silently judging crow. Your shoulders droop under the weight of a half-empty bundle. Back at the village, the sun is low again. Your hut smells exactly how you left it, smoky, sour, and crowded. Someone asks if you brought back apples. You didn't. Someone else asks if you heard any news. You say something vague about cinnamon and war. Then you collapse onto the straw pile, too tired to speak. You close your eyes and pray you don't dream about bartering. Because tomorrow, it's back to the field. You wake to the sound of rain. Again. It drums against the thatched roof with soft insistence, leaking through in tiny, cold drops that land right on your forehead. You roll over, groan softly, and pull the rough wool blanket tighter. It doesn't help. The blanket is damp, the straw beneath you smells like must and sweat, and your body is one big sore muscle pretending to be a human. Another day, the same routine. You sit up slowly, brush straw from your tunic, and stretch until something pops. You're not sure if that was your shoulder or your soul. You rub your face with both hands, already tired before the work begins. But today feels different. It's not the weather, it's your mood. There's a heaviness that's not just physical, a fog in your mind. You're not sure if it's exhaustion or just too many days stacked on top of each other like wet firewood. You step outside and breathe the wet, earthy air. Your neighbor's already feeding her chickens. She doesn't smile. No one smiles before breakfast. You glance at the fields, the mud, the tools, the looming gray sky, and suddenly you feel something dangerous creeping in. Doubt. What's the point? You'll dig, plant, pray. You'll eat the same food, scratch the same lice, listen to the same sermons. Then you'll die, probably from something stupid. A bad tooth, a rusty nail, a goat-related accident. But then you hear something to laugh. Faint, but real. You look over and see two children jumping into a puddle, splashing each other with wild delight. Their feet are bare, their faces dirty, but their laughter is like sunlight cutting through the clouds. For a brief second, you smile. Because even here, in this brutal, filthy, backbreaking world, there is joy. Small, flickering moments of it. In a warm bowl of pottage, in a breeze that doesn't stink, in a song hummed by your mother, in a night without coughing. You return to your hut. Your family is stirring. Someone sneezes. The fire needs tending. A goat bleats from the back room. You take a deep breath and pick up the wooden bucket. Your body aches, but your hands move on their own. You know what comes next. Because this is medieval life. No glory, no fame, just endurance. And sometimes that's enough. As the last embers fade in the hearth and the gray sky deepens into dusk, your breath slows. The village quiets. Even the chickens are still. You lie on the straw bed, every bone accounted for. The fire crackles softly. The rain, a gentle drumbeat on the roof, like nature's own lullaby. Your thoughts drift mud-streaked memories of chores, laughter, pain, and persistence. And yet, through it all, you endured. You always do. Day after day, under the heavy sky and heavier burdens, you rose, worked, loved, and lived. Tomorrow will come. It always does. The bell will ring, the field will call, the smoke will rise. But for now, your body softens. Your breath deepens. The flicker of firelight dances across the walls, then fades. The goat grumbles in her sleep. Someone nearby snores. The stars, barely visible behind the clouds, keep silent watch. You're still. Safe for now. As safe as anyone can be in this time of famine and faith and fleas. And as the world narrows to darkness and warmth, one truth settles in your chest like a stone and a feather all at once. You survived. Sleep well, travelers.